Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Joe. Hello. How's it going? Hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you're surviving and breathing and feeling good. I am here to lift your spirits if you are feeling stressed out or a little bit overwhelmed with life right now, as we all are. But there's so many amazing things still going on in our world. So that's why I'm here to share all the positive, uplifting stories for you. Give you a little positive motivation to keep going and to keep looking at the positive and just look at the bright side. This will all come to an end eventually. But right now, there's so many people all over the world that are just doing amazing things to help one another, coming together. Just everyone is coming together, and I just find that there's just so much kindness going on right now, and I think this has just brought everyone closer, and it's really made you feel grateful and, makes you want to be kind to other people and do nice things and help out when you can. I feel like we're all really connected at the moment, even though we're all very separate and we're all very not close physically, but it's just, I feel the connection and I feel all the kindness, and it's exciting. So I have lots of kindness and feel-good stories to share with you today. So let's just jump right into it. My first one is actually about a app that has been created by some different companies, and this app lets you donate face masks to hospitals. So, of course, we know that there's been a shortage of personal protective equipment, which can really weaken the health workers' ability to do their jobs. So we need to make sure that they have all their equipment necessary. So, a correlation of a private and nonprofit organizations have announced an initiative to basically let people donate masks and any kind of stored away medical equipment that you might have to hospitals. And they've created an app that can help you do this really efficiently. So it's pretty interesting. If you are somebody that has N95 masks at home or any kind of medical equipment, they're asking for gloves, medical grade respirators, goggles, gowns, all those kind of things. You can donate those to hospitals directly, and it's absolutely free. You don't have to pay for anything, but you can ship them out and they'll be able to use them, and you're just kind of doing what you can. So if you have anything laying around your house that you haven't, already done something with, so now there is an app, and it's also a website that you can go to, and you can donate anything that you have that could help out any hospital workers, just all the frontline health workers. So some companies, so UPS, Microsoft, and the American Hospital Association, there's a bunch of other different ones that have kind of come together for this project, and they're calling this project Protecting People Everywhere. So that's actually the same initials for the much needed personal protective equipment, or PPE is what they say. So same kind of initials, easy to remember, Protecting People Everywhere. They've come up with this website. It's a website, it's an app you can download on Android, iPhone, anything that you have, or you can easily just go to the website, Health Equip. So this service that they've created, it just helps, connect donors with hospitals that are, in the most need of supplies. just with depending on patients, locations, all those other kind of factors. So anyone can donate supplies. It has to be medical grade. Tools are preferred. And then the donations will be added to a central roster. So hospitals can sign up and then can request the equipment that they need. And then once the system pairs a donor with a recipient, the hospital will cover the shipping costs and UPS will then transport the goods. So Bashara Koche is the Senior Vice President and Chief Health Officer for Kaiser Foundation Health Plan, and she says, we want to make sure that everybody who wants to contribute supplies has an easy and safe way to do that and a mechanism that's fairly equitable for getting those supplies to the hospitals. So there you have it. There's also several big companies I'm sure you've heard, such as Apple, Tesla. They've really stepped up and they've been trying to supply medical equipment by tapping production chains and repurposing their factories. Apple actually pumps out 1 million protective shields per week, and Tesla has actually given away hundreds of ventilators. So there is lots of people doing what they can, but it's not enough. Healthcare workers need the right protective equipment so that they can do their job and stay alive and help everybody else out. Just last week, the government released documents revealing that the personal protective equipment stockpile is 90% depleted. So those supplies are shipped to the states and local governments for hospital workers. But basically, this is saying, any small donations can help. Any just from people, from small businesses. Those kind of donations can fill in those gaps and just make a difference. So if you do have anything laying around, definitely check out the app, or you can go to the website. I will actually post something up on our social media page to make it easier for you to go to that website or to the app. It's called Health Equip, but I will try to put that link up on one of our social media pages so you can click that very easily. Alright, so my next story is pretty incredible. It's about a man who spent $82,000 on gift cards. He sent them to every single home in Earlham, Iowa. Pretty crazy. $82,000. He's unidentified, kept keeping anonymous, but he spent $82,000 on gift cards just to help the people in Iowa. So, Jeff Lilly is the mayor of Earlham, Iowa. He actually works as a plumber when he isn't taking care of Earlham city business. But he has, watched many people in Earlham be laid off and, prolong their jobs during all of this crisis, just like everybody else. And he knows that many people are struggling to pay their bills. And he says, there's a lot of hardship out there. People are worried and hurting. Because of the pandemic, we've been forced to close our community center and our library. We've been shut the doors at City Hall as a precaution. A lot of bad things have been happening here, just like everywhere else. But something very good happened in Earlham recently. So he said that he was heading into his office and his cell phone rang just after 8 a.m. at the end of March, and an unidentified person on the line told him that he had heard from a man who wanted to pump some money into the local economy and help make life a little easier for the citizens of Earlham. So that's exactly what he did. So he says, he told me that this guy was thinking of buying $150 gift cards from our local grocery store, which is the Hometown Market, and to the West Side Bar and Grill, then having us give them away to people in need. So he says, I said, wow, what a great idea. That's incredibly kind and generous. And then they called again, and the man told him that he would like to pay for 250 gift cards instead of 100. So the mayor suggested that he add a new diner in town, which is Trustell's Broken Branch, which is just another place. And then it kept going. The phone rang again, and the donor wanted to give away 500 gift cards worth $50 each. He says, I told him, wow, that's about one per household. We have 549 residents in town, and I thought it was just incredible that they be divided among our own grocery store and our 2 restaurants, giving almost every household a chance to pick up a few extra groceries or treat their family to some takeout. So the unidentified generous gift giver said he didn't want to leave anyone out, and he said he didn't want to split 549 gift cards among 3 businesses. So instead, he said he wanted to buy 549 gift cards from each of the 3 businesses for a total of 1,647 gift cards, which comes to the total cost of $82,350. And then mail the 3 gift cards to every family in town, that each household would receive about $150 in gift cards. Amazing. He says, I called the store and the restaurants to see if they could get a hold of that many cards. And when they told me that they could, I lost it. I went home, and when my wife looked at me, I just started bawling. I'm a working blue-collar guy, and this just hit me like a ton of bricks. I knew how much this would mean to so many in our town. So the gift cards were purchased by the anonymous person, the anonymous, very generous person. They were stuffed in envelopes and addressed to every single household in Earlham, and they got sent off. So each envelope also contained a letter from the mayor explaining that the cards weren't a scam, telling anyone who didn't need the cards to feel free to drop them off in the bill slot at the city hall for distribution to families who did belong to the Earlham Community School District but lived outside the city limits, so they could send them out. He says, I was beyond excited for everyone to get their gift cards. I couldn't wait for Facebook to light up. A single mom of 3 boys who works part-time at the city hall recently lost her job as a steakhouse waitress in the nearby town of Waukee. She says, like everyone, I've had to cut back a little, and getting some takeout for dinner is a treat. To know that there's somebody out there who wanted to anonymously help everyone in town just warmed my heart. It's just one example of a mom who lost her job and is struggling. So many people in their town, everyone's struggling right now. Everyone's going through lots. So I can't imagine these 3 gift cards would make a huge difference. But once all the envelopes landed in the mailboxes, I guess the phones just started ringing at City Hall. So a lot of people really wanted to pay it forward. And we've had almost 50 cards come back so far, so they could be distributed to people that really needed them. So there you have it. $82,000 in gift cards sent to every single person in Earlham, Iowa. Pretty incredible. I think that's such a cool story. All right, it is time for a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere. I have more amazing stories to share with you, including a pretty cool story about what the American Girl Scouts have been doing during the pandemic to help those frontline workers. So stay tuned.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Hello, we are back. I got more great stories to share with you, and like I said, I have a story about the American Girl Scouts and what they've been doing to help out the frontline workers during the coronavirus pandemic. I'm sure we all know the American Girl Scouts, or at least you know what the cookies taste like that they sell, because they are delicious. And the Girl Scouts have been just impacting the world for generations, doing different things. Definitely just bringing smiles to people's faces and just donating and doing little things that I think just bring communities together. So during all of this chaos, they've found another way that they can help out, which I just think is pretty cool. So they're known especially for selling all the baked goods. Like I said, those cookies, or they're standing outside grocery stores. Sometimes they'll go to like doorstep to doorstep, and there's usually about a 6 to 8 week Girl Scout cookie season that I'm sure you're aware of. But of course, since the whole coronavirus pandemic, it's changed. plans, right? You know, they weren't able to do these events and stand out the grocery stores. So the Girl Scouts of the USA has suspended, or they did suspend the in-person activities, events, so any booths that they were doing, just of course for safety precautions. They're doing what everyone else can. But the organization did find a way to continue the cookie distribution, but also just spread joy to the first responders, volunteers, and local causes. So now you have the option to buy cookies online through their Girl Scouts Cookie Care, or you can actually donate cookies to communities in need. So there's been a lot of cookies being donated. They said that there's a trend right now that's little more than 1 out of every 10 packages are sold or being donated somewhere else. So that's pretty cool. The Girl Scouts of the USA CEO Sylvia Esvedo says, for 108 years, Girl Scouts has been there in times of crisis and turmoil. And today we are stepping forward with new initiatives to help girls, their families, and consumers connect, explore, find comfort, and take action. So the Girl Scouts all across the U.S. have been donating cookies to nurses at local hospitals, any urgent care clinics, food banks. So far, they've already donated over 60,000 boxes of cookies. It's a lot of cookies. They've been going to the food bank for New York City to be distributed to different grocery packages for healthcare workers and their families. They're also stepping up, pretty cool, to help with the mask shortages during the pandemic. So the Girl Scouts Council is creating a group called Bronze Award Project, and it's for the juniors, the little kids, to sew masks. And then they've kind of launched it, and they're launching this project, and then the team will virtually meet over online and kind of work individually to create masks and then donate them and distribute them to the places that are in need. All right, so my next story, you may have heard of Toys for Tots. Toys for Tots is a nonprofit organization that normally provides toys for families in the U.S. that need them around Christmas time. But Toys for Tots decided that they just cannot wait to Christmas time to help out families right now due to the coronavirus pandemic. They said, with families under stay-at-home orders, the program has decided that they will distribute 2 million items across the country. So this program is run by United States Marine Corps Reserve. And they want to distribute 2 million items across the country, and that's exactly what they're doing. Jim Laster, the president and CEO of the foundation, says, while Marine Toys for Toys Foundation is known as a Christmas time charity, we don't want to wait until next holiday season to lessen the fear and anxiety of our children. So local toy collection usually begins in October, and it lasts until mid to late December. And then the toy distribution occurs in mid to late December as well, just to get those toys around Christmas time. So campaigns are normally conducted annually in over 800 communities across all 50 states. But with COVID-19 limiting the activity outside of homes, they have requested outside help in distributing them immediately as quickly as possible. So Virginia-based charity Good 360 has actually allowed that to happen through its network of just nonprofit partners. They've kind of come together to make sure that they're distributing these toys as quickly as possible to as many different locations. So it says, in order to provide immediate relief and assistance now, we've partnered with Good 360 to distribute 2 million toys to families in need. So this program has seen a very dramatic rise, they say, in demand for household items, just including like toys, during this crisis, because so many families are at home, and so you can kind of keep the kids more busy. I'm sure that's very difficult to keep young kids in the house for long periods of time, especially if your family, if you don't have those kind of toys and things to distract them, it can definitely be difficult. So that's why they've started this early, just to help deliver, 2 million toys, like games, books, all those kind of things to families in need. So this is also made possible through donations from Hasbro, Lego, Disney, Funko, Five Below, and Build-A-Bear. So they've kind of all come together to help make this happen right now. So usually it distributes an average of 18 million toys to 7 million less fortunate children each year. But Toys for Tots is doing this now to make it quicker, and I think that's super cool. I think that's really awesome to be able to distribute all of this right now, because that can definitely put a smile on kids' faces. So if you've never heard for Toys for Tots, it was actually founded back in 1947, so it's been around for a while. They've done a lot of amazing things to help children and families that are just less fortunate. So here they are doing what they can during the coronavirus pandemic. Speaking of Lego and them helping out during the pandemic, Lego is actually offering their assistance to healthcare workers at this time in the front lines by using their facilities to produce thousands of protective facial visors. So they posted on Instagram on their story that was published just earlier this week that they've decided to base their factory in Denmark. They've kind of repurposed it and they've reworked some of their machinery to make more than 13,000 plastic masks per day. The masks will reportedly be distributed to hospitals and any medical facilities across the country that are in need of them. Although these visors do not offer the same kind of protection as N95 masks, individuals and businesses are all kind of producing these plastic shields kind of all over the world just to help. They've also been making, of course, the homemade cloth masks for medical workers to use as an addition to the high-risk areas. They're having the cloth masks and these different visors. But they're just doing what they can. They're able to, repurpose their factory machinery to make these and distribute to help, wherever they can. They say, this week we began to make visors at our factory in Billund for healthcare workers on the front line in Denmark. We are so incredibly proud of the team who made this happen. They worked around the clock to create designs and make molds that can produce more than 13,000 visors a day. We are really grateful to have such talented, dedicated, and caring colleagues. They also announced this week that they're going to be donating 500,000 brick sets to children in need during the breakout. This is them helping out with distributing to Toys for Tots, I believe, as well. With that announcement, they didn't specify how the sets would be distributed, but I know that they are working with Toys for Tots as well as different other charities and stuff to just donate and distribute as many toys and things as possible to keep kids busy and keep people happy. As you know, this is not the first big company to, come up and create things, try to repurpose their factories to help out. I mentioned Tesla and Apple. James Dyson designed a ventilator in just 10 days, so he was distributing those, and he donated a bunch of them. IKEA has also been donating N95 masks that they had stored away. I've talked about before. There's different Chinese tech companies that have sent tens of thousands of respirator masks to different hospitals that were hit really hard by the virus. I've mentioned the Patriots made the headlines as well because they've been using their private team jet to transport masks from China to New York and Boston hospitals that are in need. There's so many big companies and corporations and organizations that are coming together to repurpose what they have to distribute it and give it to those who are in need. So there you go. Add Lego to the list. All right, it's time for a little bit of a break, but when we get back, I have more great stories to share with you, so stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC, America Still Beautiful podcast. Alright, I think this might be one of my favorite stories of today's episode. It is about the Joy for All project. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it is something that some Canadian students, some Canadian high schoolers have put together. And it's a hotline that basically is super cool. They've created a hotline that plays like pre-recorded messages of positivity. So it's pretty interesting. They're calling the Joy for All project. It's launched by just students, actually that are run by the Calgary Board of Education, and they've created this free hotline, just to help comfort any quarantine seniors across North America. But of course, it's not just for seniors. They say people of all ages are encouraged to dial 1-877-JOY-FOR-ALL, and you can enjoy the regularly updated selection of jokes, stories, guided meditation, educational messages, just positivity. If you're feeling low, down, they have this free hotline that you can call and hear a good joke or some good advice or meditation, whatever you want. So it was actually just launched this past week, and they've been seeing some pretty great results from it. They've been on lots of different calls. They're going to keep updating it all the way until June for sure. Although if social restrictions continue throughout the summer, they said they hope to continue to keep adding to the phone selections, just so you can get a little time of free from self-isolation and get your mind off of it and just call this hotline and hear some positivity. So I'd say a lot of folks who are in isolation are really missing their families right now, of course. So we're trying to fill in some of the gaps and bring them a little bit of joy and levity during these difficult times. That is one of the school teachers, Jamie Anderson, said. You can also, if you're a teen, anyone can also submit your own messages and recording through the Joy for All website. You can submit things that you want, jokes or sayings, just any kind of positivity, and it could be used in one of their recordings that you might hear when you call the hotline. So it says children and youth can submit their own written messages, content, and even recordings. It says we encourage kindness, creativity, and diverse messages of joy, especially for our Indigenous elders in isolation, as well as seniors who are newcomers, immigrants, and refugees. So they just want kind of a wide range of different things, but it's all kindness, creative, just positive energy that you can call this hotline and receive automatically. So 1-877-JOY-FOR-ALL. Okay, so my next story is about another anonymous donor who's done something pretty amazing during this time. There was a struggling family-owned restaurant in Florida that's called the Dats Restaurant Group of Tampa, and they've really been struggling to stay afloat this month after, of course, transitioning to just delivery and takeout orders. So the owners of the restaurant, Suzanne and Roger Perry, were actually forced to completely downsize their workforce from a team of 400 employees to just 27. And they were saying that, without some real financial windfall, they weren't sure how long they were going to be able to sustain the team. But this is when a pretty amazing anonymous donor came in. But it's pretty cool. So they wanted to, keep their employees paid, so they decided to sell the most valuable item in their restaurant, which was a 25-year-old bottle of Old Rip Van Winkle bourbon. So they did some research online of the value of the bottle, and they offered to sell the bottle for $20,000 plus a 15% online discount. So many people started to lowball and, just give them lowball offers for it, until one day they received a call from a man who says that he will pay for the bottle full value. So he said that he would just drop off a check for the full value. And of course, he was very true to his word. He dropped off a check at one of the establishments. And then they were quite surprised to find out that the man had actually written them a check for $40,000. So he doubled what they were asking for. So they said that they thought it was a mistake right away, so they tried to return the check, but the man just insisted that they keep it to support their business. So pretty cool. Suzanne, one of the owners, says, "I was so moved by that. It was really touching that someone would reach so far into their own pocket to help us survive this." So they've been able to use that money to rehire a few of their laid off employees for another 4 weeks of work. They've also been able, the restaurant group has served hundreds of meals to first responders and healthcare workers that are battling with the COVID-19 pandemic right now and doing what they can. They say, although the man chose to remain anonymous for his good deed, Suzanne says that she knows him to be a humble veteran and local who often hosts events to benefit the community, and she plans on using her business to return his kindness in the future when everything goes back to normal. She says, there are causes that he cares about deeply, causes that are really near and dear to his heart, and I will support him in the form of catering events. I will promote them. I'll do whatever I can. What he has done for me is going to come back to him 100 times. Okay, and for today's last story, I thought I would switch it up to a new invention, a newly developed thing that's going to be quite the game changer, I think, in our world soon enough. I thought I would just, leave it on a note of distraction for you. So there has been a newly developed enzyme, and it actually breaks down plastic bottles in hours. So this could change the recycling game for an entire world. It is pretty incredible. So they are utilizing this enzyme that they found, some scientists found within composted leaves. And it's actually breaking down plastic all the way into a recyclable form in just a matter of hours. So the French company Corboy is responsible for this breakthrough, and they're already talking to Pepsi and L'Oreal to actually unleash an industrial market scale production of this new substance within 5 years. So this could be changing things quickly. It says we are the first company to bring this technology on the market. Our goal is to be up and running by 2024, 2025 at large industrial scale. So this discovery is a huge advance that they're describing it as a major advance for just solutions for plastic pollution control that of course have been very prominent in our lives. But they've come up with this pretty cool thing that they have found they're utilizing from composted leaves that they're able to do this with. So they've been working on this for quite a while, but it's going to make a difference. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Boyan Slat. He took on the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, or the Bracelet folks of 4Ocean. You might have heard of them as well, who took on the problem of ocean pollution in rivers. I've talked about them before on this podcast, but the scientists from the University of Dalhousie are applying their breakthrough to another part of the problem, which is, of course, the recycling of the plastic. So plastic isn't straightforward to recycle. There are common varieties of plastic made from multiple different layers and all these different things. There's so much science behind it, and each one is requiring different equipment or temperature to break down. So there's a lot of plastic esters that could be recycled but aren't, because the market value for that recycled material is so low it can't financially sustain the operation. So now they have this thing that they have created, which is kind of, so I guess the most common polyester plastic. I don't even want to say it. The PET is the most common polyester plastic. They lose much of its mechanical utility when it's heated for recycling. So creating new material is preferred, and PET waste continues to accumulate. So this new enzyme actually achieves a minimum of 90% depolymerization in just 10 hours. So that means that the polymers, the large complex particles become monomers, which is small single particles, in less than a day. And even more amazing, they actually end up biologically depolymerized plastic that can actually be reused to create things like plastic bottles. So the manufacturing plastic bottles from recycled PET made by this enzyme would cost about 4% of the amount needed to make new bottles from fresh petroleum, the recycling infrastructure. So including the grounding up, heating of the plastic bottles before the enzyme is added would still make it more expensive in the end. So this is pretty cool. This is could be a huge game changer for recycling and for just our environment. And it could just really bring the cost of producing recycled plastic goods down. Yeah, pretty exciting. I thought this was a really cool new discovery. They've been tackling this company, Corbois, has been tackling unrecyclable plastics for quite some time, trying to find out ways that they can do this. They actually demonstrated a plastic film last year that can be compostable in home or municipal compost piles. So their objective will be to address the markets of plastic films and single-use bags later on, they say, with rigid packaging and disposable tableware, that kind of stuff. But right now they're already working with Pepsi and L'Oreal to really try to unleash this within 5 years. So we could be seeing some drastic plastic recycling changes coming up in the near future. Pretty cool. I thought I would leave it on that kind of note for you. The future's looking bright. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of GSMC, America Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Joe. I had an amazing time sharing these stories with you today. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, to like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. It's greatly appreciated, and I look forward to next time. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America Still Beautiful podcast.